Michael Ironside here.
He's telling lies.
He knows me so damn well.
He only shaves his head every morning.
And he checks me.
What's up, everybody? Ryan from JoBlo.com here, coming to you from the red carpet for Ve Neill's Vampire Weekend, a convention and vampire ball celebrating not only everybody's favorite creatures of the night, but their love of makeup effects and practical horror. I'm here tonight to talk to people about their favorite bloodsuckers and their storied careers in horror and effects. Check it out. So, your role as Alice in Nightmare on Elm Street cemented you as a favorite among horror fans. What was it like when you first stepped into that iconic franchise?
It was amazing because I've been a fan of horror since I could talk, and of course was a big fan of Nightmare on Elm Street. I had a huge crush on Rodney Eastman from Nightmare 3, who plays Joey. And so when I booked the role, it was like a dream come true.
No pun intended.
Dream come true, not a nightmare.
So you went through an incredible transformation as Alice throughout those films. What was the most challenging part evolving that character?
Fucking A.
The most challenging part was that, so we don't film in sequence, right? And it was very important that it be believable that Alice goes from this very shy, timid girl to, a badass, right? So basically Alice's powers evolve as each one of her friends dies and she gets their power. Hence she becomes somewhat stronger gradually, It needed to be gradual, And so in my script, what I did, since we don't film in sequence, I would write for each scene, in the 110-page script, who had died. Because we could be doing, so I could gauge the level of power or strength or confidence, that I had. And because we could be doing, scene 36 in the morning and then doing scene 4 later in the day, you know what I mean? Yep. So it was very important to keep that consistent, as well as, hair and makeup too, to be consistent throughout the film, and also my level of confidence. So that was that was the biggest challenge.
Well, you absolutely nailed it, of course.
Thank you. It was believable, right? Oh, yeah. Good.
One of the biggest things about this convention is that we are not only celebrating vampires, but we are celebrating a love of practical effects. Throughout your career, do you have a favorite moment involving special effects?
Gosh. Well, of course, Nightmare, the 80s, it was like all practical effects, essentially. Do I have a moment? I mean, there's scenes that I love in Nightmare 4 in particular. The scene in the theater where the sane pair, this one, right? Of course. And Mick Strong was head of production on Nightmare 4, and he actually wrote a book, and they would have these meetings to figure out, how are we going to have Alice go through a theater scene, into a screen? How are we going to have Debbie turn into a cockroach? How are we going to, because these are practical effects they have to figure out. So I remember one thing that was fun. So eventually, I'm watching the movie in the theater, and then the wind starts happening, and I'm holding onto the railing for dear life. And it's so interesting. They put me on what was like a gurney on wheels. So I'm laying on. I obviously can't see the gurney on wheels. And then I let go and I roll back, and I'm on my stomach, laying down. And that was so clever. And in this scene, Mick said that theater scene involved like 14 different kinds of things. It was the most complex scene to do. And then the stunt double flying into the screen, and then the house got into the screen, and now another day we're actually at the Craven, black and white, the wind blowing, all that consistency. It was just so well put together. Yeah. And I also love the part in the theater scene. You see Alice's shoe, one of her shoes fly off, right? And also, of course, we have the element of Alice in Wonderland. So that shoe flying off is like Cinderella losing her slipper. So there's like these little Easter eggs in the film that deal with fairy tales. So anyway, I love Nightmare on Elm Street. It's always
Oh, big same. And lastly, with this being the vampire weekend, I wanted to ask how you thought Alice would fare against a vampire.
probably not very well. Because aren't vampires super duper duper strong? Stronger than Freddy Krueger? I don't know. Yeah.
Alice is strong too.
Yes, she is. Well, you know what? I just as long as I have my nunchucks, okay? You know, I'll have a fair chance. All right.
How you doing? I'm Ken Foree, and
I'm Ryan from JoBlo.
from JoBlo.com, one of my favorite sites in all the world, and dear friends, and I appreciate them so very, very much. They're dear to my heart, and I have been for, I think 30 years now. So yeah, really, really fans.
You've had a ton of iconic roles over the years, from, of course, Dawn of the Dead to Devil's Rejects. I grew up on Kenan and Kel.
I was going to say that. Kenan and Kel, yeah, you got to remember Roger Rockmore, folks. Yes.
My favorite show growing up.
Oh, Kenan. Kel, get out of here. Yes.
This is a big moment for me, honestly.
No, I know. You're about 32, 33, or 20.
35.
35. You know, you guys grew up to be. Now, look, I'm talking to Ryan. He was one of the little kids that watched me and Kenan and Kel. And look at him now. The guy uses deodorant. He's big. He's grown. He's a grown man. He's a grown man.
I was wondering, of all your iconic roles, what do you say is the one that you'd get recognized for the most?
That is so difficult. It really is. It used to be Dawn of the Dead, of course. I would imagine Joe Grizzly has become one of the more iconic characters I've played, and a lot of people say immediately, "Oh, you're Joe Grizzly." I remember that. They come up with the line. The line on "I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch" is just it's worldwide. I'm telling you. Let me give you a little story about that. Can I?
Oh, please, yeah.
When it was being edited, I got a call from the editors, and they said, "Ken, we'd like you to come to a party." And I had to leave town the next night. I said, "Let's come to a party. We're having editors." I said, "The editors are going? Why would I? What's going on?" Well, every day we come in, and somebody will say, "I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch," and somebody will say over there, "No, I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch." I mean, we love that scene so much. We have to have you come to a party. And I've heard that from insurance companies, mortgage companies, anybody that has I guess stockbrokers, anybody that has a floor with a lot of cubicles. I hear this, and the same story. Every time we come in, we go to get coffee, or we go to the water cooler, or we go over to that's when we come in, and somebody will take their coffee back, we go in our cubicles, and somebody will say, "I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch." "No, I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch." "No, I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch." "No, I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch."
Your role in Dawn of the Dead solidified you as a horror icon. What do you think has given that film such staying power and made it such a beloved classic in the horror community?
Changed the generation. Night of the Living Dead came out in '68. Black and white film, very low budget. It got distribution and fairly wide distribution, and was a well-received film. I mean, it's a little for a lot of people, but you know, it was as it should have been. It was well done and respected for that. We came in and we put it in Technicolor, and we gave you a mall, and we gave you a different story, and it at that time it was '78. And so you had that change of generational change from the '60s and the hippie or the Black nationalist movement or the civil rights movement, the faith in politics and the nation and truth being was at jeopardy at that point. And all of a sudden, out comes this movie in '78, and it's got Technicolor and it's got blood and guts, and it's really right in your face. It did well for a film that was also low budget, and a horror film of that nature to do that well. And it has continued. It's been George's most successful film. It has probably the most fans in the world than any of his other films. There were 4 people who were leads, and all of them tried to do the best they could they had an opportunity, and they tried to be as real and authentic and really do a great job in portraying the roles. And I think as I look at it over and over again, because I have to see it constantly because I'm the screenings and people are asking me, and sometimes I'm at home and I turn the channel late at night and I say, oh, I'm not going to watch it for 5 minutes, and I'm in there 2 hours and a half later, I'm still there going, it's 3 o'clock in the doggone morning, and I'm still watching this darn thing. And I said, where's that body? Where's that body? That's not my, where's my body? Where did it go? Anyway, yeah, I think that my co-stars did an extraordinary job as actors in that film, and they helped make it the success that it is today. So I'll give them credit for that. Yeah, and that's the co-stars. The damn zombies.
Since this is Vampire Weekend, I wanted to ask which of your characters you think would stand the best chance fighting a vampire?
Every one of them.
No further questions?
Probably Joe Grizzly. Let's go with Joe Grizzly. Joe Grizzly kicks everybody's ass.
Hell yeah.
Joe Grizzly. As a matter of fact, kept telling Rob, I tell him for Joe Grizzly, I think I pretty much given up the fight. But when I first started working with Rob, I said, Rob, can't kill me. Fans don't want you to kill me. They don't want me dead. I can't kill me, Rob. We're going on for another second. I got one more. Hold on. We did Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, Leatherface. And I got my head cut through with a chainsaw.
Wow.
I died in the pool, supposedly. I get a call about a month after we shot. When do for you? Well, Kim, we decided you're going to have to reshoot a scene. I said, well, what scene's that? He said, well, you're going to live. I said, I got a chainsaw through my head. How the hell am I going to live? He said, well, you're going to live, Ken. You're going to live. I said, well, why? Why are we going to do this? I said, point of that. He said, well, we tested it in several places, screenings, and the audience didn't like that you died. So you're going to have to live. So I tried to pass this on to Rob. And Rob got to a point, first he would listen to me for a minute, 2 minutes of this. Rob, I can't die in this film. We got that. Finally, he got to a point where I said, Rob, how you doing, Skip? By the time we were in Halloween, I said, you're not going to like me dying, Rob.
We're having such a great time at the ball here, and your whole convention. I wanted to know what inspired you to create this event, the Vampire Weekend.
Well, I love vampires, and my girlfriend Tommy said, oh, we should do a convention together. And I said, well, I don't know anything about doing conventions, but I said, if we do one, I want it to be in Los Angeles, and I want it to be about vampires. And she said, oh, wow, I don't think anybody's ever done just a vampire convention. I said, well, perfect, let's do it. And so we just started putting it together.
We're having such a great time so far.
Thanks.
And so you are a legend in the effects world. I am such a fan myself, and you've worked with some of my favorite actors and directors. When you approach a collaboration, what is your technique, to collaborating effectively to bring a vision to life on screen?
It usually starts with a script and the director. And then and then of course we have to talk to the actor because they're wearing the makeup. But a lot of my characters were done by Tim Burton. So he sort of has drawings to begin with and starts there, or Stan Winston becomes involved, or Rick Baker, or any number of makeup effects artists. And I basically bring the character to life at that point, you know?
And, with this being the Vampire Weekend, I do have to ask, what is your favorite vampire in pop culture?
Well, you know what I really loved recently, and I watched it about 5 times the minute it came on TV, was Renfield. I thought Nick Cage did an amazing job. I loved it so much. I mean, that's very poppy for me. So that's recent. That's my favorite one recently.
And kind of piggybacking off that, with you as an artist, if you could design a vampire from scratch, what would be your vision for the perfect vampire?
I loved Lost Boys. I don't think I could go anywhere else but that. I mean, I could probably update it, but we did them today in the original form that we did them in the 80s, and it still holds up. They still look fantastic. So I don't know. I just did a vampire film last year called The Wolf and the Lamb. And so we redesigned, I designed makeups from stuff that was already existing, but I put my own spin on it, and we did different things to them, painted it differently, and we created a couple of real creepy looking vampires, so I'm very happy about that.
What do you think gives vampires their staying power in horror and pop culture, that events like this can happen?
I don't know. They've always sort of been like a sex symbol as far as I can tell. I mean, even the scary ones are sexy in a weird kind of way. So I don't know. It's sort of your gothic sex symbol, I guess.
Having this opportunity, I would be remiss if I didn't ask about one of my all-time favorite movies. How did you approach creating the look for Beetlejuice?
Wow. Well, I had a picture that Tim drew of a derelict going through a trash can, and I went from there. Just little by little, be talking to Michael. He said, I don't want my nose. I want a broken nose. And then I thought, well, he's crawling out from underneath the trash can, so maybe we should cover him in mold and moss. And we just kind of started going from there.
I'm such a big fan. And lastly, you've had such an amazing career so far. You're an icon in effects. What are your hopes for the future of practical effects and makeup?
Well, I hope they don't go away, for one thing. I mean, I really, when CGI came along, everybody thought, oh, everything's going to be CGI. Well, it didn't. Not everything was CGI. And, everybody's saying, now everything's going to be AI. I mean, it might happen for a minute. I don't think everything will be. But, actors love being in makeup. They want to be the character. It's hard to, act to something that you can't see or feel, so they like that visceral, organic feeling of the makeup.
Practical effects for the win. So, you have played some unforgettable villains and tough guys in films over the years. What is your secret to bringing such intensity to your roles?
Well, I'm well trained as an actor.
Do you do anything to prepare yourself to kind of get in a certain zone?
I'm well trained as an actor. Look, anyone can create an emotion. Acting's being able to find that emotion and do it over and over and over again. Sometimes you might have to do 14 takes because they want a medium shot, a close-up, a wide shot. They want to have maybe a roving crane shot that comes down and finds it and goes up because they cut it all together. You have to find something, but you also have to recreate it over and over and over again. That's what the training's for. Would you want to be on an airplane with a guy that just has a knack for flying?
Fair.
Or do you want to know how somebody can take off and land 7,000 times in a row without any incident? You gotta learn how to do that. You gotta train for that. Learn how to do it before you do it.
And with such a varied career, is there something you haven't done yet that you would love to do? Either a role to explore or a position on a film?
No, just keep working. My dad said I was a whore. I've told this story a few times. My dad lived upstairs, upstate. I'm from Canada, up in the province of Ontario, a little town called Apsley, and he only got one station, the CBC North. So we got him years ago. I got him a big screen TV and a VHS, and I gave him a few of my films, and I saw him a couple of months later. I dropped in. And I said, what'd you think? And he went, wow. He's very well read, grade 3 education, but very, very well read. He said, you're a bit of a whore, aren't you? And I went, what? And my brother and I were standing there, and he said, doesn't mean you're bad in bed. And I went, what? And my brother leaned over and said, he's trying to give you a compliment, Michael. And I went, oh yeah, Dad. And he went, oh. And went back to reading. Yeah. And it took me a while to realize he's absolutely true. I pretty much will lend myself out to a situation, do the best I can, and move on. I love working with first-time writers and directors. my choices, the way to work is first the script, then the people that are involved, then the location, then the money. You know, if it's a good script, I'll talk to the people and find out who's involved. And most people have worked with me want to work with me again. You know, film and theater is. You ever heard the adage, it takes a village to raise a child? Of course. It takes a village to make a movie or a Broadway play or something like that. There's no one entity that wills it to happen. Though I've done well over 300 and some odd projects. A true artist goes, I said it in a panel yesterday, true artist goes from here through a medium and into the audience's mind with the least amount of distortion. Paul Verhoeven I see as an artist. Walter Hill, an artist. Rob Barancano is he's not young anymore, he's in his late 40s, I think. He's an artist. I don't want to mention anymore because the people I don't mention will get pissed off.
Fair enough.
You left me off the list. But they are very, very much in control of what they want and they know want. Most of the time, it's a group effort. I've had directors say they don't know how to direct, but they'll say, try this and this and this and this. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And I'll just do what I chose the first time to do it again, and I get a chance at it to make it more real. And they go, that's what I'm talking about. Because a good director will settle for something that's real over something that they might want to manufacture out of their own consciousness and stuff. Does that make sense? That makes sense. But basically, it's a circus business. Really learn how to do what you're doing before you go out.
I think you definitely nailed it over the years, for sure. So with you having worked in horror, sci-fi, action, do you have a favorite genre that you find yourself most comfortable returning to?
No, I just like well-written pieces of work. Genre is marketing. Look at Donald, I said it yesterday. Donald Pleasant said to me very early in my career, he said, if you kill a dog with a shovel and they make money off it, they only want you to kill dogs with shovels. So the dog might become Dame Edith Evans, the shovel might be a Bentley. But he says, so you have to take the risk if you want to branch out to do other things and do other characters. Because it says this is not a cheap market and nobody really wants to take financial risks. They want something that's a proven product, you know. And so I'll do these very evil mother effers for big money, and then I'll go off and play priests and teachers and doctors and lawyers and Indian chiefs, and I'll do those in independent films, and I love acting.
We love you and stuff. Seriously, it's always such a cool thing when you pop up, man.
He has no pants on.
That's true. I guess we can't really.
Very well endowed, actually.
There we go. I'm going to use this on my dating profile now. And lastly, with this being a VeNeill event, we're here celebrating practical effects. Do you have a favorite special effects moment from your career? Either.
Here, look at. Let's clear this up. I'm here because Ve Neill is a friend. I first worked with her in 1979 on the 18th when she was the head makeup artist on that. We've done things over the years together and stuff. She's a sweetheart. She's a professional, and most of the people are here because of V. She's worth showing up for.
Do you have a favorite effect or creation of hers?
No. Just about anything she does. You think The Lost Boys, Beetlejuice, just take a look at her credits. Everything she does has a certain amount of artistic quality to it, and competence. It's not just, she isn't making this shit up on the run. She knows what she's doing. I love V very much. I'm a big fan of hers.
Well, thank you for taking a minute to talk with me. It's been a pleasure.
Ryan, it's a pleasure.
Pleasure, man. Thank you so much.
Sure.
We're here for a VeNeill event. Obviously, an innovator in the world of practical effects. I wanted to ask, in your storied career in the genre, do you have any favorite practical effects moments that you've been a part of?
Look, in the first place, Ve Neill is going to go down as one of the great makeup artists with Jack Pierce, with Rick Baker, Ve Neill. These are great makeup artists who have touched so many iconic characters that we love. Unfortunately for me, she's never touched me. But there's still time, V. Come on. And I've been made up as a lot of different people over the course of my life. And I'm an actor who loves practical makeup. do I have a practical makeup story? In Terrifier 3, you know that it's going to be a hell of a kill when they invite you off the set and bring in the dummy that looks like you.
Yeah.
And you're like, I could do a little more. They're like, no, we got the dummy, and it's a better actor. I went back later, I realized the dummy was actually filming scenes that instead of me. Yeah, that's a lie. But, makeup, I had once in a practical makeup day in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, I had to be turned into an old man of 20 years older, so that took 3.5, 4 hours. And then we filmed, and then they sent me away, and they did 6 more hours of makeup where they beat me up and break my arm and tear me apart. And then they had to dye my hair back to the color it was when I got there in the morning. It's 27 hours from the time I got there till the time I was back in my hotel. My longest day. But we're here to celebrate Ve Neill, and this vampire weekend was joyful. Met a lot of great people. Most of them aren't vampires. A few have been following me around at night.
So as someone who has played a famous vampire in pop culture yourself, could we talk about what some of your favorite vampires are?
Oh, yeah. I grew up classic vampire, Bela Lugosi. And we've got to be honest, Bela Lugosi is an amazing actor. But vampires, as vampires go, Dracula, very slow. Of course, who doesn't love Chris Lee took over the role in the Hammer movies. I like John Carradine as Count Dracula. He was quite different. But, I collect this stuff. One of my favorite vampires is absolutely Al Lewis as Grandpa Munster. And when they told me that I was going to be playing Grandpa Munster, my very first question was, are you punking me? If you're punking me, it would be the meanest thing anyone ever did to me. I took it very seriously. To play Grandpa Munster, you've got to go through Al Lewis. So I knew I'd always have gloves. I knew I'd always stand straight. I knew I'd always have my hands in this shot. So I love him, and I love that I was lucky enough to be chosen to be the next version of him. That was a real blessing. And I thought, I got to tell you, I thought, as Draculas go, I thought Nick Cage did a heck of a great job in Renfield. Terrific.
But what keeps you drawn to the horror?
Well, I started, my early memory of trying to figure out what an actor is, it was because of the Universal Monsters. I would see Karloff as the monster, and then I'd see him in House of Frankenstein kind of as a Dr. Frankenstein character. Lugosi, Dracula, then he's Igor, then he's Frankenstein. So I started having the epiphany there are actors wearing makeup. So what brings me back to the genre is that it's right where I began, and God is good. I'm exactly where I should be. He made sure that I paid attention and knew how to play these parts from an early age so that I could play them well in this advanced stage of my story career. People always say, is there a role that you wish you could play? What I wanted to play for years was Santa Claus. And I've done it now 2 times. I've done it I haven't played the Santa Claus. The Santa Claus. I played Santa Claus in this Terrifier and in a film called St. Nick of Bethlehem, which we put out this year or last year, and it'll be out again this coming year. Terrific movie. So I think that would be the one, but God is good. We'll see what he has in store for me. We're talking about my seat in Terrifier. Why do they hate me? What have I ever done to these people? Rob Zombie, Rob Zombie's like, hey, I know, let's call Dan Roebuck and kill him in the first 5 minutes of the movie. But that's the life I've chosen. If I had to choose one character to face off against a vampire, I would say we'd send in the Count, send in Grandpa Munster first, kind of even a playing field. But I'd like to see a vampire go up against John Samson Toilette from The River's Edge. He might just wrap his hands around the neck and do what has to be done.
So that'll do it for me from Ve Neill's Vampire Weekend. From JoBlo.com, I am Ryan Coltrera. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. JoBlo remains an independent company, and we appreciate all of your support.